big-budget actor, and he took a big cut in his salary and everything to work in this movie because he believes so brilliantly in the script. A major critique, not just of American society, because I don't believe there's American society and then there's corporate world globalist society.
Yeah, sure.
So even though it's set in America, it's not so much an indictment of American society as corporate society. But boy, oh boy, what a brilliant film it is, because again, it ties in the whole fantasy into reality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the people who live in a false, projected, corporate, world that's basically manufactured, escape then into their minds. So this perfectly shows you how this person has this fantasy world that he is living in.
Yeah.
That basically it's indistinguishable anymore. What is reality and what is fantasy? But I would recommend everybody to see that film. It's a very fine film.
Yeah, I remember seeing it a few years ago, I guess. But I should return to that and view it with new eyes, I guess. Definitely.
Well, these are movies to keep in the home. These are movies to get and watch them just to stay sane, I mean, 1 Hour Photo, All About Schmidt, with, what's his name? Maniac. What's his name?
Jack Nicholson, yeah.
Right. And American Beauty. These are movies that are on a different wavelength, and they're very deep. They're very profound films. So, I also recommend All About Schmidt, which I also very much like, as a recommendation for people, in case they missed any of these.
Then we got Wolf or Wolfen.
Yeah, Wolf is also with Jack Nicholson. It's an absolutely amazing film. I'm not going to say too much more about it, except people pick up that film Wolf and watch it. It's absolutely fantastic. It deals with lycanthropy, but I love the message in that film. It's also, so the subtext of that movie is about your darker emotions that connect with the animals. Remember when we were talking about the guilt complex, about the role of nature?
Sure, yeah.
And how once we've bought into the lie of the inauthentic life, one of the symptoms of that is a very negative attitude towards nature and towards animals, because they represent the non-egoistic world. Well, Wolf is sort of that movie that deals with that theme about, okay, here we are caught within our steel, concrete world, but we still have a sort of an animistic animal part of us. And rather than that being something demonic or evil or something that you want to get away from, Wolf is about, the beauty of that. And in fact, and Wolfen jumped to mind, the early movie Wolfen with Albert Finney, because that very much deals with that theme. And the message in Wolfen is that, the spokesman in that movie are telling the white people, you're just pathetic. You're a joke to think that your civilization's even going to last. It's on its way out. And the Wolfen, the natural, will be there, millennia from now. So even though you think you can erase it, it's utterly nonsensical. So, people can pick up the movie Wolfen with Albert Finney and watch this very, very good film. It's quite, people would say it's a horror movie. I don't think it works like that, so there's no need to, if you go into the video store and find it's under the horror section, don't be put off by that, because it's actually a very fine film.
Sure, absolutely. And, of course, we have, as you mentioned before, I don't know if you want to say something more about them, but the Lord of the Rings, of course.
No, let's skip that, because we'd be here all night.
Yeah, exactly.
We'd have to do 10 shows just on that movie, except to emphasize the fact, again, that if people are into analyzing that film, think of the tarot. Think of the tarot arcanum, the major arcana, because they're all there. Even the court cards. Try to look at the Lord of the Rings movie. One of the ways, what they call a hermeneutic, is to use the tarot archetypes.
Excellent. So let's dive right into it. We have a few films that we want to kind of dive into more detailed, I guess. How about Superman Returns? Should we begin on that?
Well, The Prisoner first. You were playing that clip from The Prisoner.
Sure, yeah.
Again, I want to encourage people to really go and check that out. There's some clips on YouTube, but Prisoner is mostly available now on DVD.
Yeah.
Either for purchase or in video stores. So even if people just pick up the first episode, which is called Arrival, and check it out, all the Prisoner series opens with the same music and the same little caption, the same series of images,
Yeah.
As you know, they always have the same sort of introductory storyline that opens all the Prisoners. That is loaded with very, very powerful information. Like you played already one aspect of it where you hear the dialogue.
Yeah.
And just as an example, if people play this interview back and listen to that or go to The Prisoner, you'll notice that the prisoner is asking, who are you? He asks basically a question to the people who seem to have, captured him or whatever. And he's asking, who are you? What side are you on? Right? So immediately we've got the whole idea of the political.
Yeah.
The ambivalence. You think it's one side or the other. And of course then the Prisoner series literally shows you later on that both sides are controlled by number one.
Yeah.
The very next thing that you see then, of course, or he's basically asked them then, what is it you want? And then they say, information. But here's why I'm going into this is because here's a perfect example of the double or triple meanings that overlay a particular movie or documentary or scene. It sounds very obvious that when he's saying, what do you want? And they're saying information, that's what they want, information. But the word information is repeated 4 times in a very, very short sequence. And the way that the voice is pronouncing the word is information. So the word takes on a double meaning. It doesn't just mean information of an intellectual type. It is actually what they're saying, emphasizing subliminally to your subconscious mind, is in formation.
Yeah.
That you are in formation.
Exactly.
So actually, when you get into looking at the Prisoner that way, you actually discover something amazing, and that is that the opening scenes of the Prisoner are about the descent of the soul into formation, into the world. That's what this man is also alluding to on a metaphysical level. Patrick McGowan himself was an expert in 14th century manneristic and mystery plays, a medievalist, specializing in certain allegorical Christian mystery plays, which are highly complex, which also people like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, you see, were experts in.
Yeah.
So there's more to his series and his work than people might first imagine. But again, if you step back and listen to what's being said, this whole idea of, in the beginning of the scene, you hear a crash of thunder.
Yeah.
The crash of thunder and the bolt of lightning has always been a symbol for the descent of the soul into matter. Kabbalistically, and even in Christian mythology, the fall of Lucifer, the fall into matter, you see. So that's what you see. The whole Prisoner opens with a crash of thunder, which is the primal cause or the first cause. From the center of the screen, which always represents basically transcendent vanishing point, you see a car coming with the Prisoner, a single-seated car in which the Prisoner is in. That's taken from the tarot card, the Chariot. And the Chariot tarot card represents precisely that, the descent of the soul into matter. The sign of Cancer being called the gate of the soul, in which the soul falls into matter. And you see this image in a modern rendition. And then later on, just a few seconds later, you see the descent to the underworld, where the Prisoner character goes into the underworld, subliminally, in order to make his resignation to the government. But the symbolism is that he goes into the underworld. Then when he goes into the underworld, there's an office. And in the office, there's a man sitting behind a desk with a big map of the world behind him.
Yeah.
Subliminally, that's the demiurge again. That's a Gnostic concept of the ruler of the world. And so the prisoner, or the child, who's being introduced into this world that he doesn't want to be part of, he doesn't want to be imprisoned in the world of matter, he says, I resign, I'm leaving this. I want to remain a spiritual entity who's free.
Yeah.
And then what happens is the symbol of the X appears, which is highly subliminal. And the X, of course, is the cross, the crucifixion of Jesus, the crucifixion of the pure one of spirit, because leaving the world of creation is not just quite a simple process. You have to go through a death experience. And the symbol of the ritual death, or the transition through the rites of passage, was always symbolized by the cross. And that's exactly what you see crossing the Prisoner's own face. Just before he's filed, you see, as a resigner. And the whole show of the Prisoner is about why he wanted to resign, because the world order can never understand why a spirit would want to be free. But you see the cross going over his face. Now the cross, the secondary meaning of the cross, or the X, is the feminine gene.
Yeah.
Isn't it, the Y and X chromosomes?
Sure, yeah.
So he's feminizing himself. This is also another very important part, that he's lost his masculinity, or at least the masculinity that represents slavery to the beast, the eros energy that builds the civilization. The Prisoner's literally regressing or retracting, and he's feminizing his energy by saying, I'm crossing myself off the list. So there's a tremendous statement there also about that, And then you also have, just as he feels that he's going home to his house after his resignation in the opening scene, death appears. And the death, of course, is an image from the tarot card. Right? Then he goes inside his house and he's put to sleep through this gas. But just as he's losing consciousness, you see the image of the tower struck with lightning, or the falling tower. They do this very car blocks outside his window, sort of waving, you know, or inverting or turning over.
Mm-hmm.
And even when he's in the city of London, you see his car circumambulating around Pall Mall, symbol of the Wheel of Fortune. So there's a whole tarot symbolism and this whole symbolism which is implied in astrology and tarot of the fall of the soul into matter. And as another aside for those people who are into Patrick McGoohan himself, almost in every other movie or documentary or show or any type of show that Patrick McGoohan, the actor, has been in, he himself drops a hint of the original Prisoner series, either in the dialogue or in something he's wearing or in some other very subtle way. Probably even unknown to the people that have hired him to act.
Yeah.
So this is something to watch out for. That he's in Columbo a lot. He wrote a lot of the Columbo scripts.
Oh, really?
So, but the man is a genius and also has made a habit of dropping little tiny, allusions to his original Prisoner series in other movies that he appears in. One good example is the Clint Eastwood movie Escape from Alcatraz, in which the warden of the prison is Patrick McGoohan.
Oh, really?
Right. Yeah, but right down to the clothes he'll wear or the hand gestures that he makes or some very subtle comments that the actor makes, he's always been alluding to the previous series, which is absolutely astonishing. People can check that out if they want.
Yeah, fascinating.
And they should check out Arrival, the first episode, in which, when the prisoner arrives in the village, which is the microcosm of the world, as you're saying, he's given 3 credit cards or three cards which are labeled 666, because the prisoner, of course, is number 6.
Yeah,
so if you're watching very closely the first series, he's actually given 3 identity cards, and there's 3 of them, and the number 6 is written beside it. So we have the number of the beast, or the number of man. You see, it's the whole idea of corporeal existence, 666, the man falling into corporeal existence.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating. Yeah, I saw that the entire first episode was available on YouTube. So I'm going to link that up.
We can link to it.
Yeah, excellent.
But then as soon as he arrives in the village, he hears this voice saying, "Follow the signs." Imagine that you're the spirit, pure, and you're coming into the world, and you hear through a megaphone, "Follow the sign. We'll lead you to the labor exchange." The first place he has to go is to the labor exchange. Then he goes into a shop to ask for a map, meaning that he wants to see the big picture.
Yeah, exactly.
And all they do is keep giving him a map of only the village.
Yeah.
Every map they have is only about the world that they know.
Exactly.
He's going, well, what about the bigger picture? What about the bigger... he asks the first person he meets, which is this maid, haven't you ever questioned who runs all of this? Does it never occur to you, to escape or whatever? So an absolutely brilliant movie series, which I've used many times in teaching children.
Yeah.
We've watched the whole Prisoner series, and kids found the surrealism involved in it very, very, impressive.
Do you know if the guy, the producer or director or whatever, is he behind anything else?
No, it was Lou Grade. Lou Grade's behind everything. Lou Grade was, was a big, corporate owner of the channel that it was showed in, and he basically gave Patrick McGoohan full rights. Patrick McGoohan is one of the people in history to have the full rights to do basically whatever he wanted with the show. So him and, his team basically, had a lot of say in where they went to shoot it and all the other aspects of it. Whereas Patrick McGoohan was making it up as he went along. He was writing the script as they made the script.
Oh, okay.
He had the ideas all in his brain. There was no previous storyboard. He was basically telling and directing people what to do as they were making the thing. He was just like literally brainchilding the whole thing, or at least super directing it, what I call, channeling. When people like him who work on an archetypal level, it's not quite the same thing as just an ordinary creative genius type who sits down, and storyboards everything.
Yeah.
Dealing with something much more elevated than just that.
Yeah. I can remember myself watching this when I was very young. I remember the series, and I remember when I kind of, began to hunt for it, because at the time I didn't know what it was called. I just remember seeing a few scenes from it, and what fascinates me is that there are a few movies and a few series that are like this, that they kind of resonates with you instantly, and when you get older you kind of remember the themes, and you kind of I had this urge to kind of go view it again. So